Coming to you from the mountains and the plain. The only conservative voices brave enough to push back. This is the Conservative Daily Podcast with Joe Otto.
That's what the Second Amendment was designed to do. If you're going to do something to nullify or take away my rights under the Constitution, come get it.
Max McGuire.
When you look at politicians on the left, they need to convince people that they are victims.
A resistance to the resistance. And now your hosts, Joe Otto and Max McGuire.
And welcome back to another edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. Today is episode 50. We have now put down 50 podcasts in the past, 8 months. So a pretty nice milestone. And today, Joe, we're going to be talking about what the founders would think about us, what the founding fathers would be thinking right now if they saw us, if they saw what the government was doing, if they saw how the American people were just bowing down to these unconstitutional orders, these executive orders declaring that basic commerce is forbidden. So we're going to basically be talking about that, and we want to get people to call in. So if you want to chime in, let us know what you think. We're just going to be talking about generally how people's rights are being abused, how Democrat governors and mayors are abusing these newfound emergency powers. Feel free to call in toll free at 888-441-1121. So I was doing some digging earlier today, Joe, and I found this. I liked it. I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff, but it's from Mendocino County, which is a county in California. And that county, just before Holy Week, on April 10th, they basically issued a county-wide order banning all singing in churches. So you could go to church as long as you only had a certain number of people in the building. But no one in that church building was allowed to sing. The only vocal music or wind instrument music, so like clarinets, oboes, things like that, had to be recorded at home. And they said it could only be recorded at home with other family members present. So I saw that, and that just blew my mind, because here we were on Holy Week, and this county in California decided that not only were they going to limit who could go to church, who could be in church, but the attendees were not allowed to sing. And Joe, I know that you read the Bible, and you know that singing is one of the most powerful forms of prayer. I mean, there's a whole book in the Bible dedicated to it, Psalms. This idea that county officials can just ban singing in churches, it's absurd. So yeah, we're going to be talking about what the founding fathers would be thinking about our country today. Call in if you want to chime in. Toll free, 888-441-1121.
So we talk about what the founding fathers would think. There would be no United States of America if people ran away from viruses.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be, because you know that if you go back in time, when they had explorers, people would volunteer to get on these ships to explore new lands. That's the whole idea of having people who explored other countries.
I mean, that's the whole. It's sacrificing yourself for something greater than yourself.
Right, but it was this. It didn't have this morbid curiosity that we see today. That people are so afraid of something that may happen, where people just had more courage, right? They just understood the value of life. Like, why is life so precious? And
realize the average lifespan at that time, you were considered old age if you got into your 50s or 60s. Like, that was considered old age back then. Sure, you had people in their 70s and 80s, but you were considered to have lived a long, good life if you got through 50 years. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's you look at what's going on today. You look at what the founders, what the American colonists fought for, what they died for, right? They waged a revolution over things as simple as an extra tax on paper products, the Stamp Act, and an extra tax on sugar and molasses called the Sugar Act, right? Those were two of the straws that broke the camel's back, that forced the American colonists to fight for their independence. The fact that Great Britain was charging them more for things like tea, paper products, and molasses. You look today, and we talked about this in yesterday and the day prior in those podcasts, we're seeing people being fined $500 just for sitting in their car in a church parking lot to listen to their pastor, right? If the founders...
It's not...
The founders were willing to wage a war against the greatest military power at that time that the world had ever known over a few pennies extra tax on basic household goods. And here we are seeing American citizens on Holy Week, the holiest days of the Christian calendar, being fined $500 for sitting in their cars, right? Just sitting in their cars listening to the radio. The founders would be rolling over their graves right now, seeing what's going on, seeing someone in North Carolina arrested yesterday for protesting. And when the police departments asked, why did you arrest this person? They said protesting is a non-essential activity, right? The founders would be rolling around in their graves.
Non-essential activity. Now, we have to look at something as well, and that is people today they would love to get taxed on molasses and tea only, right?
Yeah, well, we already do. We already do pay taxes.
The taxes that we pay today are draconian compared to what we have to pay to live. And people say, wow, you pay taxes, but you make more than most of the world does. But we don't look at the scale of which people live in those other countries, right? We don't look at the scale of what a house costs and what a cost of living is in those particular countries. But there's two things that I think that the founding fathers or anyone that lived 100 years ago or before, the first of which is we are just gripped by fear. As a society, we have created a fear-based environment. Chicken Little. I mean, you've seen the thing about Chicken Little running around. The sky is falling. The sky is falling.
Yeah, and no one believes him. It's the boy cried wolf. That same kind of thing.
But that's what's happened. I mean, 2 million people are going to die. 200,000 people are going to die. Nope. It's only going to be 30,000. And now we're finding out that some of the COVID-19 people that have died that they said were never tested.
Oh yeah,
New York people had COVID-19.
New York just added 4,000, I think 3,700 deaths to their total. Those people were never tested positive for the disease, but they're just assuming that those people died from it. Basically, I mean, you've talked about this on previous episodes. They're assuming that the flu took a holiday, that all the people who would have died from the flu, because people do die from the flu.
But everyone took a holiday.
Yeah, no one is being categorized. No fatality is being categorized as a flu death right now. No one. They're all just assuming it's COVID.
You saw the meme that went around that had the guy that jumped out of an airplane and he's not wearing a parachute and says, jumps out of airplane without parachute, dies of COVID-19.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself, okay, we died of COVID-19. I guess everyone's dying of COVID-19.
Yeah.
Heart attacks are down, suicides are down, everything's down. COVID-19 is through the roof, and they still are. Even playing with the statistics, they're still only going to hit 30,000, right? And so we find ourselves in this conundrum as people that we don't get the right information. We have all these different sources that come out that tell us fear, don't fear. You have the weaponization of technologies. You have Facebook and Google and all of these other guys saying that we're going to silence an opinion. This morning, we published an article, and let me see if I can find it here where it came through. But it's additional. This is another false information found in your post, quote unquote, right? And this is science feedback. So science feedback fact checked the ability that says no scientific evidence supports hypothesis that the novel coronavirus binds to hemoglobin in red blood, right? And the article that was actually posted said that there's a claim that SARS-CoV-2 binds to hemoglobin in red blood cells, unsupported and implausible. So it said the verdict is incorrect, not because it's scientifically based, but because they decide what truth is. So we have an entire new truth that's being created that's outside the norms of what truth truly is.
Yeah, and we know that. It's just like when you got fact checked the other day on your personal Facebook page that you posted a video showing citizens journalists calling attention to the fact that hospital beds were empty and saying, well, why are they empty when we're told they're all full? You were fact checked on your personal account with the fact checkers claiming that they're not empty. They're just being kept empty just in case.
Right. So
Right?
it's false because it's not really happening, but it actually is happening.
But
Right?
let's talk about what you're mentioning. You're mentioning big tech. You're talking about Google, Apple, and the different technologies that they're giving the government, whether it's tracking our phones through location data.
Right.
There's talk of one new feature that might be coming out to warn you when you're near someone who has COVID-19 by using the Bluetooth connection of your phone, which is frightening, right? Not only would that require them to have your medical data, but it would also require them to have your locational data as well. The founders will be rolling over their graves over that, right? Your right to privacy. Your right to privacy, your right to be secure in your person and your effects and your papers, right? Just because the founders didn't know that cell phones were going to be a thing doesn't mean that when they ratified the Bill of Rights, they didn't have those effects in mind. That's why they talked about your effects, your digital papers, right? It doesn't have to just be parchment written with a quill and ink. So you look at that and like, where's our backbone? Where's the backbone? We have protests going on. We mentioned this protests going on in North Carolina where a woman was arrested. And the reason that the police department gave was that protesting is a non-essential activity. Where's our backbone? Right? I said it before. I'm going to say it again. The last time we saw this amount of tyranny in this country,
right,
people were being tarred and feathered. Colonists, revolutionaries were storming the governor's mansions, putting a bullet in their head and burning the mansions to the ground. Now, that's not a call to violence. That's just showing you that the last time we saw this level of tyranny, that was what the American people did, right? Mm-hmm. They said, no, the rallying cry was give me liberty or give me death. It wasn't take my liberty and protect me from death, right? We become so soft.
Faith meant a lot, but faith meant a lot more then too, right? So we had conviction. You know, today's conviction is, and I'm not saying it's wrong to have a conviction that you want to protect the whales, right? I think that's a noble cause, but the conviction are single-sided, right? They're one-dimensional. We're not having conversations about protecting the Constitution because they don't understand how much was lost in order to, the further we get away from the sacrifices that are made, right? The more probable it is that people forget that to have the things that we have today took mass sacrifice. Yeah. To write the Constitution took a mass amount of sacrifice. The Bill of Rights. I mean, just think of how many lives had to be lost. And then after we had the Constitution, we had a civil war.
Yeah, we had to keep fighting for it. We had to keep fighting. War of 1812. They burned the capital to the ground. Britain burned our capital to the ground in 1812, right? Just because we won our American War of Independence doesn't mean that our liberty was secured. We had to defend it.
Wasn't.
We still do.
For hundreds of years, we had to do that. Hundreds of years. You know, you have the Wright brothers that built the airplane, right? And the Wright brothers, you know, ultimately, I mean, how many people died securing flights so that we can have a 747 that we have today or a 787? You know, and we've come a long way in the last 100 years. And we've relied on the government so much that the crutch, it's almost as if you lean up against something. You just need a little bit of support. And then over time, you learn that is your support, right? Because you forget that, no, you can support yourself.
Yeah.
You forget what's really important to you as an American. You forget the sacrifices that were made. And part of that is, I don't want to take anything away from people that migrate to the United States legally. I don't want to take anything away from them. But let's talk about what that migration has done when you bring people from other countries. They come here because of the big heart of the United States, of the people of the United States, who are some of the most giving people anywhere on the globe. So we bring those people into here in Omar, whatever her name is, from Ilhan Omar. We bring her in, then she comes here and it's anti-American. Like, oh, this is America's terrible, right? And you think to yourself, that's what happens when you forget history, is you let someone create a narrative that's anti-American and people adapt to it. And, oh yeah, I'm ashamed of us. We were never great. You were never great? Then get out.
Yeah. If we were never great, then why did you leave Somalia? Right?
Right. No,
how does that make sense?
Oh, you're racist because you say go back there. No. I think that if you can't appreciate the opportunity you've been given, by the way, she didn't earn it. That's a great thing about America is you get put in an opportunity to given opportunities that you normally would not have.
Yeah.
Right? People are fighting. They're lining up to come here. You have people that are here illegally that weigh the risk of, hey, I'm here illegally, or I can go live in a place that's a dump. We say, oh, that's racist. No, it's not. It's a dump.
Yeah.
I've been to places that they're talking about. I've been to a lot of places.
A lot of places
in
are
Somalia,
dumps.
and they're dumps.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And the American people have just become too coddled, too complacent. I mean, find the average American and ask them what they'd be willing to die for. I mean, you ask me that, it's family, it's faith, it's country, but I don't think the average American is willing to actually lay down their life for the continuance of this grand experiment of representative government. That's what every American throughout our entire history has been called on to do. That yes, if necessary, you are expected to take up arms to defend your life, your liberty, your country. I don't think the average American would do it today, because you see what's happening. You see the rights are being trampled, and there are people out there saying, oh yes, but you forgot that your rights don't apply whenever there's a respiratory virus. I mean, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. We have people being fined, being threatened with arrest because they went to church on Easter Sunday. You have people, I mean, in California, Joe, California is still talking about banning all gun sales. They've already admitted that they're on the downswing from their apex. They've hit the apex of infections, and they're now on the downside of their curve. They're on their way to 0 new cases, right? And now they're talking about a statewide ban. Before it had just been localities and counties. Now they're talking about a statewide ban on gun sales. Not because it has anything to do with the virus, but because they just don't want people to own guns. You see what's happening, and the reaction from most Americans. I mean, we see what's happening in Michigan. We see what's happening in North Carolina. Those are patriots. They're out there protesting, as the First Amendment protects their right to do, to peaceably assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. They're out there doing their part, and they're being arrested.
But while the government gets smarter in 2 ways, the government and the people that rule over us, the plantation owners, and the people that work for those plantation owners, politicians, and in some places the police, they've gotten smarter. They've gotten a lot smarter. They recognize 2 things. 1, the American people has gotten dumber or less courageous. And number 2 is that in order for you to protect your Second Amendment, First Amendment, the constitutional rights that you have, right? You got to fight for it. And by the way, to fight for it means you got to go hire an attorney. Yeah. And to hire an attorney, you have to spend money. And most people out there lick their wounds and are not willing to spend it because they don't have it. Because 30% of their money goes to the government. So they leak out just enough, make you have just enough so you can live. Right? Americans aren't saving money at record paces today. They're not thriving. And if anything, over the last month, we've learned that they're actually losing. Their 401ks are down 30%, 40%.
Yeah,
now we're having conversations about, why is it that people protest and they get arrested? Well, because protesting is not an essential activity.
Well, they claim that protesting is too dangerous when the only time these people are actually put into danger is when the police officer approaches them without PPE, puts on handcuffs, throws them in the back of a squad car, and then books them into jail. Remember, those are the same jails where they're releasing the actual convicted criminals because of the risk of COVID-19. So they're releasing the actual criminals, and they're taking the American citizens, law-abiding citizens who are protesting, using their rights to protest. So they're releasing the criminals, but putting the protesters in those same prisons that they claim there's a risk for COVID-19. I don't know if you saw this, Joe, but there is a case out of Florida where a man named Joseph Williams was released from prison over fears that COVID-19 could spread through the prison. He was released, and the prosecutors are now alleging he was reapprehended. They're now alleging that he murdered someone 1 day after being released. He was released from jail, from prison, over fear that he'd catch the virus. He went out and he murdered someone. And these are the same government officials releasing people from prison, arguing that we don't need to be able to go buy a gun. And yes, the prisons are really dangerous because there's lots of COVID-19 in the prisons. But if you dare if you dare protest against what we're doing to you, we're going to put you in those jails.
Right. Right.
And I look at it,
the people,
and
the
I look
people
at
actually
it,
watch it happen.
and I look at it, and I just think, what would the founders be doing right now? What if they were willing to burn governors' mansions to the ground over taxes on paper products, on stamps, on sugar, right? On tea. If they were willing to burn a governor's mansion to the ground over that, what would they be doing right now? What would they be calling on us to do right now? Because it sure as hell wouldn't be what's going on in the country now. They'd be applauding the people out protesting in Michigan and North Carolina. But the rest of us, the rest of the American people sitting behind closed doors waiting for their big government check to arrive, right? Checking on their unemployment, just sitting there watching Netflix, while all of the rights that so many Americans have fought and died to protect are just being washed away. Joe, I don't know. I don't know what the founders would say, but they certainly wouldn't be happy with us.
Well, we don't even have to go as far back as the founders. We can talk about the people that sacrificed their lives, right, or fought and died in World War I or World War II,
or Vietnam War,
or the Vietnam War, or the the
Iraqi
Korean
freedom,
War, right?
Iraqi freedom, Iraq 1 or 2. Yeah.
I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of people that lost their lives. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives. We could go to any of those people, right, that fought on the battlefield, right? Bombs going off around them, bullets flying over their heads. And they would look at the entitlement that people feel and the complacency that they're displaying, and they would shake their heads. And there's many Americans, by the way, today that would do the same thing. But the many Americans today don't have cohesion. They're divided. We're having conversations about people that are like, what do I do? What do I do as a person when I'm just one person? They've divided us so much, and then use social media to create these little fiefdoms where the only message of truth is coming from a weaponized environment on the left, which has no basis of facts. I mean, you talked about it yesterday when you're doing the CNN. They changed their breaking news header in real time.
5 or 6 times in less than a minute.
In less than a minute. They're over there frantically adding things, creating propaganda, right?
And you know that there's someone there saying, change it. Okay, go to this one. Because that's how they work. They have producers there calling for the little minions to push the buttons and change the graphics. They had a whole graphics package set up for 1 minute of rapid fire propaganda.
Right.
And whenever Trump speaks, like yesterday, I'm putting together a video to go out today. Yesterday, Trump was talking. He handed over the podium to a government official who was going to talk about ventilators and what the government is doing to make sure that hospitals have all the ventilators they need. And CNN cut away to do a fact check on something completely different. After they've stirred up the fear over ventilators, they've caused the panic. They did that, right? They caused that panic. The media caused that panic. Now that Trump has actually secured enough ventilators, Trump said in his news conference yesterday, not one American has died because their hospital did not have a ventilator for them. Not one. There has not been any fatalities attributed to a lack of ventilators in hospitals. Not one. And the minute Trump went on into the podium and brought an expert up to explain that, CNN cut away because it goes against their narrative. I mean, we see what's happening in the media. We see what's happening in the left. I mean, Pelosi is out there bragging, congratulating Democrats for blocking the small business loan funding. She's out there actually congratulating them. Let's go to this cut. This is cut 4.
So last week when they came they asked for $250 billion in 48 hours. I said, well, I don't think so. Let's see how we can open this up to many more people. So Chuck Schumer and I, and this all happened on the Senate side, and I congratulate the Senate Democrats. They went to the floor when Mitch McConnell went in for his 250, and they said they objected.
Yeah. So Joe, that is straight from Nancy Pelosi's mouth. We covered this on the podcast earlier in the week that the Democrats blocked funding from going. This was a clean funding bill. It was clean. We had someone email in today. claiming that the bill was full of pork. That's a lie. This was a clean bill. All it was to add $250 billion to a program that Congress had already unanimously approved to give grants and loans to small to medium businesses. That
Which,
funding,
by the way, they're going to run out in the next
at the end of this week. At the end of this week, they will be out of money. They've already dispersed 2/3 of the money at the beginning of the week. So they will be out. Everyone agrees they will run out of money this week. Pelosi blocked that. And Pelosi and Schumer blocked that, claiming that it wasn't urgent. And now Pelosi has sent everyone home. She sent them all home. I mean, look, talk about a dereliction of duty. Talk about violating the oath that these people took when they were sworn in as members of Congress. What would the founders do to them? I mean, Joe, not too long ago, 150 years ago, we had senators dueling in the Senate chambers. I mean, you look at Alexander Hamilton and Burr. They brought out pistols and shot each other over petty disagreements. Look at what's happening in Congress now, where Nancy Pelosi is congratulating Democrats for ensuring that the program to keep small businesses afloat will run out of money, because they want to make sure that they get a piece of the pie for other people. What she said, they want other pet projects to be funded. Screw the small businesses, screw the many employees that are now going to be added to the unemployment rolls when this funding runs out at the end of the week. Screw all of them. If you're not going to give us our piece, we're just going to send everyone home. Everyone home. So even if there's a deal, unless they come to a deal today, Joe, there will not be enough time for everyone to even come back and vote on it.
Right.
They've guaranteed that it will run out.
And they don't care about the American people.
They don't
and we
care.
have this conversation all the time. Tell me you care about the American people. And by the way, what are we doing for sole proprietors? People that depend on other people in order to make their living.
Sole proprietors, the only access sole proprietors, they don't get unemployment benefits.
They get $1,200.
They get their $1,200, and they can apply for a grant through the Small Business Administration. Oops, sorry, that grant program ran out of money. No money there. They can, if they lose their job because they get COVID-19, and then there's some benefits for them. If they lose their job because they have to take care of a spouse or relative who comes down with COVID-19, then there's protections. But there's no protections for the plumber out there who loses business because no one wants strangers coming into their house. There's no protections at all. And that's not even on Nancy Pelosi's radar. That's not even on the Democrats' radar. Joe, Nancy Pelosi was on James Corden's late night show yesterday, the day before, and they're asking her, how are you handling this? And she's bragging about how stocked her freezer is. She brings the camera and shows how much ice cream she has in her freezer. That's how tone deaf these people are.
Oh, yeah.
Americans are. Do you know that out of everyone in this country who rents an apartment or a house or a condo, 1 out of every 3 Americans who are renters did not pay their rent in April? 1 out of every 3.
Yeah.
What does that mean for the mom and pop landlords who have between 1 and 3 and 4 properties that they rely on to A, pay the mortgages on those properties, and B, with the extra money that comes in, survive themselves? Right? It only takes, if you have 4 properties and 1 out of every 4 decide not to pay their rent, it only takes a couple months before you're out of business.
Right.
With that model. And these people don't care. Nancy Pelosi's in her kitchen bragging about how much ice cream she has in her fridge, while Americans are terrified to have to go to the grocery store because of all the hype. They're waiting in long lines, and Nancy Pelosi, she's like, oh, well, I'm doing fine because I have a freezer full of ice cream. She sent everyone home. The small business program is going to run out of money, and she doesn't care.
No, she doesn't care. But I mean, when did they ever care? And I think this is what it comes down to. We're having conversations, and you're saying, hey, look, we're not advocating violence, but you can't even protest.
Yeah,
even the people that are against what the government is saying, even those people you're being told, hey, your rights don't matter.
Yeah.
They don't matter.
That anytime there's a respiratory virus, the government has the power to turn your rights into privileges. Because that's what this is all about. Your right to drive, your ability to drive, that's a privilege. You have to pass a driving test. You have to get your driver's license, and it can be revoked if you do other bad things. Driving is a privilege. Your right to defend yourself, that's a God-given right. Every human being, by virtue of their basic humanity, has the right to defend themselves, their family, and their property. Right? You have that right. That's a God-given right. But they're transforming that into a privilege, saying, oh, well, no, technically there's a respiratory virus. So sorry, you're just going to have to fend for yourself. And oh, by the way, we're releasing all the prisoners from jail. Good luck. And did you see now in California, they're warning that there may be an uptick in crime? They're saying there may be an uptick in crime after they just emptied out all the jails and prisons. There may be an uptick in crime, but oh, by the way, no need for you to get a gun. Too dangerous. Too dangerous. It's absolutely maddening. Well, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to keep talking about this, so don't go anywhere.
Ronald Reagan famously said that our freedoms are never more than a generation away from extinction. Conservative Daily exists to make sure that never happens. With our community of 700,000 members, we fight every day to hold Congress's feet to the fire and stop them from surrendering our rights and freedoms. The fight to take this country back is not over. Please join our movement right now by going to conservative-daily.com and clicking the subscribe button to sign up for our free call to action newsletters. We have a chance to save this country, but only if we all work together. Again, this is conservative-daily.com, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the top.
And we're back from that break. We are talking about what the founding fathers would think about us as a country, as a people, as individuals, to see how many of us are hiding in our houses, afraid to go out and protest, and just willingly allowing the government to implement these draconian, unconstitutional measures. What would the founding fathers think about us? They're rolling over in their graves right now. Make no mistake about it.
But I don't even understand. See, my problem is I don't understand how we've gotten to the point where the people that actually are pissed off, and there's a lot of them, why they're not speaking up? Like, why can we not hear?
Seeing that. We're seeing that this week. We're starting to see that with
now
Michigan.
We're seeing it because now they're covering it, but they're covering it outside the main media. The main media is not really covering it. We're covering it as people, and it's still being suppressed.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever happened, I mean, we learned yesterday that we covered this last week on the show, the North Carolina protesters, a lot of really disgusting stuff happening in North Carolina. We've already in the past talked about how the sheriff of Wake County had decided just to suspend all pistol permits, like no more new permits to purchase a pistol. He was smacked down. We had the people who were arrested for praying 6 feet apart in open air in front of an abortion clinic. They were arrested. Now we're seeing a protester yesterday arrested because the police department says protesting is a non-essential activity. Joe, I mean, part of this is elections have consequences. North Carolina typically is a red state, but they have a Democrat governor, right? You see places where there's other really draconian stuff going on. Trump won Michigan, but Michigan has a Democrat governor. You see what happened in Nevada, where the governor banned all doctors from using hydroxychloroquine, and then he was discovered to have been stockpiling it himself while preventing the people from being able to use it. His administration was found stockpiling it for themselves. I mean, you see what happens. A lot of this is elections have consequences. These are red states with blue governors. You look at Kansas, where they banned church services on Easter. These are blue Democrat governors controlling red states, and you're seeing this clash. You're seeing the traditional conservative values of these states come into conflict with Democrat governors who believe that by virtue of getting 50% plus one on election day, that they have the right to suspend your rights because there's a virus. I mean, we're seeing this. Yes, this is part of this is elections have consequences, but the other part of it is you can't just sit back and watch this. Your rights are being trampled. Your rights are being taken away. You got to fight back. And this is not a call to violence, but you got to people have to do something. And that's why I'm so heartened to see what's happening in North Carolina and Michigan, because they've had enough.
Well, they've had enough, and if we're just being transparent, it's happening more in every state. I mean, it's happening in Colorado. And Polis, by the way, is using tracking. I don't know if you know it's about Colorado, and they're probably doing it in other states, but they're actually using cell phone data. They're exposing cell phone data. Nobody's even said what they're using it for, but they're using cell phone data to find location, what people are saying, conversations. They're using that data in Colorado against the law, against the Constitution. They're using it.
Yeah.
All because the justification of public safety.
Yeah. No. So in the federal Constitution, in the preamble, there is this call for the government having responsibility to promote the public welfare. And there's also other parts of the Constitution that talks about how it is Congress, it's the federal government's role to promote public welfare. But after that part was ratified, the founders took a step back and said, okay, now we need to make sure that Americans' rights are protected too. The amendments, the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, that was in there to limit the powers of the government. The Constitution says, yes, the government is responsible for public welfare, but the First Amendment says that cannot be used as an excuse to violate someone's religious liberties, to violate someone's right to peaceably assemble. The Second Amendment, to violate someone's right to defend themselves. That's what the Bill of Rights is for. It's there to limit government's power. So all these arguments that you're hearing of people saying, oh, yes, you have a right, but government has these rights, that's BS. It's BS. The Bill of Rights exists specifically to protect us from having to have these arguments. And yet the people in power are forgetting all of that. Either accidentally or in most cases on purpose. They're forgetting this and trampling all over us.
Well, let me ask you a question. All right, let me walk the math for you. For everyone that's listening, let me do the math for you. You have a national crisis. They declare a state of emergency for all 50 states, and they enact powers to say stay-at-home orders in roughly 42 of those states, I think. Maybe I'm off by one. And people comply. But while they're complying, because they don't know better, because they're not, a vast majority of those people are now that were more than sensible are now not questioning it at first, now don't have any income.
Yeah.
Right. And the people that work for the government are not going to question the government because they are a part of the establishment. So you got the establishment, the politicians and the government workers, right, that are being fed this thing, the public safety, the justification of taking away your rights. The population getting upset, those people don't have any money.
Yeah.
And we already said that I can violate your constitutional right, but if I strip away your ability to fight it, right, because it becomes draconianly more expensive, and judges, there is a certain portion of the judges that you get if you could shop them, if you got arrested for, standing up for your constitutional rights, that are on the left anyway, and then you have to appeal it. In order to appeal it, you got to understand the process.
Yeah.
So they made the process so complicated you can't do it without an attorney. But right now you're not working.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's no rule that the government has to pay you back for legal expenses.
Yeah, there's none.
If they're found to be at fault. So you're out all that money.
You're unemployed, right? As it is, most people are now unemployed. Not most, but a lot of people are unemployed, not seeing the same kind of money coming in the door as they're used to. And if they fight it and they lose, because whether we like it or not, the judges are so inclined to defer to the government during national emergencies, They are more inclined to do that because none of them want to be responsible for causing another outbreak, right? None of them want to be responsible, which it's cowardice. It's cowardice.
Yeah, but I understand that, but do you understand that there are literally, until the people in the United States decide collectively, and you're seeing it now, there's pages out there in social media. I receive probably 20 emails. Hey, can you send it out to your email list? We're trying to organize in different states. You have the militias in Virginia and Maryland and West Virginia, and those areas that are organizing right now. They're actually collectively going out and getting people to join their group. By the way, their memberships are up dramatically because people are saying, I'm done, I'm tired. But they're organizing themselves now because they know that the only way to stop the government tyranny is to do it in mass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have to literally get 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people together.
Yeah.
We complain about Tiananmen Square in China and that, they have, they're trying to just get their freedom. We're giving up our freedom.
Did you know that no one died in Tiananmen Square? That's the official number.
Yeah.
Official number from the government of China is that no one died.
No one died.
Listen, in North Carolina, we've been talking about this today because it's so disgusting. In North Carolina right now, the numbers I'm seeing, show 108 total coronavirus deaths, 5,000 confirmed cases. North Carolina has a population, I believe, of around 10 million people. So 108 people have died in a state of 10 million people, and people are being arrested because the governor has declared their First Amendment right to be non-essential. We talked about it before, but we saw how in Wake County, the county sheriff decided he wasn't going to accept any more pistol permit applications. In North Carolina, you need a permit to purchase a new pistol. He said he was just not going to accept any more applications because it was too dangerous out there. And now we have 100 people have died. That is, and realize that these measures went into place long before the death totals reached 108 people in this state. There are states that implemented lockdowns when they only had a few confirmed cases. Like, is that what we're heading to? Every year we're going to have governors, mayors, county officials shutting down the country, suspending people's constitutional rights every time a couple dozen people get a bug? We shouldn't even be having this argument. And part of that, Joe, is because, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, what happened in Virginia. Yesterday, the governor of Virginia signed an obscene number of bills into law. I think it was in the hundreds of bills that he signed into law yesterday. Things like enacting gun control, voter bills, like they were all signed into law yesterday in the past couple days. We talked about the massive protests in Virginia when they were going to pass through their most draconian gun control bills. He used this as an opportunity to pass all of those bills into law, and he doesn't have to deal with the protests because if they protest, now he can just jail them right away. I mean, they are emboldened to do this. They didn't just realize they could do this overnight. They've realized they could do this because over the years, over the decades, they have been chipping away at our rights, and no one has held them accountable. No one has stood up. And again, not a call to violence, but if the founding fathers were around right now, they'd burn down the governor's mansion. Right?
No, and
that's what they did.
By the way, you have people that are pissed off. You have people that listen and take all the information in and say, look, you have selective censorship that happens on Facebook. You have selective censorship that happens on Google and on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You have entire people's personalities, their opinions, they get silenced by being deplatformed by all of these groups. And the justification that they use is all fake news. But then you ask them for information on that fake. And look, we talk about Alex Jones, right? So Alex Jones was completely deplatformed. Completely. Yeah. And by the way, all in the same day, within the same hour. Yeah. Like, it shouldn't even be legal. I mean, you should not be able to, there's RICO things that say that you can't actually collectively come together and make a decision against someone. You can't, you're just not allowed to do it. And by the way, if this isn't a perfect example of antitrust and monopoly, I don't know what is, because they're all collectively doing the same thing to people. They're weaponizing themselves collectively against a group or opinion. Mm-hmm. It should be illegal. I mean, the Justice Department should be all over them, all over YouTube, all over Google, all over Facebook, Instagram. It should be against all of them.
Joe, but what about Walmart? Right? We talked about this yesterday. Mm-hmm. Walmarts in Michigan were caught on camera. Fact checkers have tried to claim this is a lie. It's not a lie. Walmarts were caught on camera putting yellow caution tape around their American flag displays where you could buy an American flag. They have these end cap displays of American flags wrapped in yellow caution tape. And Walmart claimed it was on order of the governor that purchasing American flags was apparently non-essential. They've since tried to walk that back. But what about places like Walmart that hear the governor say, okay, you can't let people buy this, and they just automatically do it? They just automatically do it. We talked about it yesterday. You have no right to your First Amendment expression inside of a private business. But when the government compels the business to violate your rights, it's a different story. What about Walmart? What about Costco not letting you buy American flags? What about Target not letting you buy car seats for a newborn baby? I mean, these are insane orders. You're at home, you're not allowed to leave, And now the governor of Michigan is proclaiming that you don't have a right to buy flooring to renovate your house. It's not essential. So just live in your house. Your house floods. Let's say your toilet floods, ruins the flooring. You need to put down new flooring. Governor says it's non-essential. You can't buy flooring. You go to Home Depot, you go to Lowe's, yellow caution tape wrapped around the whole aisle of flooring. Can't buy any new tiles. Can't do anything. You're at home, but you're not allowed to improve your home. That's non-essential. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. And
it's insane. And people, by the way, are staying in and they're listening to it. There's other people that are neighbors. You have the letter. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a letter that went out against a neighbor. Let me see if I can find it real quick. What was interesting about this letter is it was someone that was a neighbor of a 911 operator. Mm-hmm. And the letter basically said, you need to stay in your house. Let me read it to you. It's not very long. So this happened, by the way, locally. So that it's an anonymous note that somebody left on her car, right? And it says, I noticed that a few days a week you leave in the mornings with your baby and return in short time later without it. I'm trying to be as dramatic as possible. Mm-hmm. Then I see a man of the house arrive with the baby later in the afternoon. This sounds like stalking, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. While your vehicle isn't moved all day. This leads me to believe that the kid is in daycare. Stop. I'm assuming that your man has an essential job. This is crazy. Since he is gone all day. But if you are home, there is no reason for your child to be in daycare at this time like this. I also see that you leave shortly after your husband, I assume, gets home. You aren't wearing any sort of uniform, and I've never seen you wear a mask. Bars are closed, and you couldn't possibly be getting groceries every night, which would also require you to wear a mask. Yeah. So again, I ask you to please stay home. Also, do everything in the neighborhood a favor and keep your older kids inside. They are loud. Help do your part in keeping the town safe and stop leaving your home. Yeah. Sincerely, all your neighbors.
All your neighbors. She didn't just say it was her. She wrote it as all the neighbors. Yeah, no. In normal circumstances, you'd be able to get a restraining order for stalking with that kind of stuff.
I mean, you're saying that a few days a week I see you leaving your home.
Yeah.
I mean, let me get dramatic. Ready? And then you come back without your baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
you come back babyless.
We see your man leave.
Your man.
That man. I don't know if that man's your husband. I assume. But you can't be drinking because they're closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't get groceries because I said so.
But look how it's warped people. It's warped people so much that I mean, in California, they have a program that encourages people to snitch on their neighbors. If you see your neighbor going outside and going to work, California is now paying people to snitch on their neighbors. They're paying people. Snitches get riches. That's not the official name, but that should be. They're paying people to snitch.
Snitches get riches. It used to be snitches get stitches.
I know, yeah, but now they say no, you get paid. That's what it's come to. So it's not just the government violating your rights. The government is now actively encouraging your fellow man to spy on you, to report you, and saying that you'll get paid. I mean, how disgusting is that? I never like doing this because I never like comparing things to the Third Reich or to Adolf Hitler, but that is the kind of thing that they had in place in Nazi Germany to report Jewish Germans. If you see something, say something, right? Report your Jewish neighbors. It's just crazy. And we're not on a slippery slope because we're already on the slide. Like, we're already going down the slide. It's not if this keeps up, eventually we'll get to tyranny. We're already there, folks. We're already racing down the slide. We're racing down it. And there's no clue where the bottom is.
No, but the people, by the way, the weak people that would write this little piece of paper, the weak people, let me tell you what you are. You're a weak piece of garbage if you put this on somebody's car trying to tell them they need to stay inside.
Yeah.
You aren't worth the paper you're printed on. Man, you deserve, and as far as I'm concerned, you deserve no rights because all you're trying to do is infringe on someone else's. So but this is actually somebody in a neighborhood.
Yeah, it is.
This is someone that wakes up in the morning and checks out this person's house.
Yeah.
And he watches them.
And probably waves nicely when they walk by.
And do you know why they signed it all your neighbors and didn't have the courage to put their own name on it? Do you want to know why that happened?
Because they know that they don't have popular support.
They're a coward.
And they're cowards, yeah.
That's why. They're a coward. They're
Yeah.
a cowardly individual. And frankly, those are the type of people you want to just ship out to a different state. Let them all live together so they can all
Yeah.
spy on each other. But this isn't the behavior that we have as Americans.
Yeah.
We have to have courage, Max. We got to
Yeah.
stop the madness. Oh, speaking of courage, I want to plug something. I told you I want to do this before, and I had a conversation with this group, and I was really excited about them. You know who I'm about to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know who I'm about to talk about?
I think so. Keep going.
Yeah. So it's a company that donates profits from everything they sell to the Second Amendment groups, like Second Amendment Foundation,
Yeah.
Gun Owners of America, and that company is called Defender Coffee. Now, they're not paying us to do this.
They're not.
I just thought it was amazing that this company that they would go through the process of saying, you know what, I'm going to develop a product. I'm going to put it out in the marketplace. It's something that it's popular. Everyone likes it. Everybody drinks it. Most people, not everyone. That's me bandwagoning again from my neighbors.
Yeah.
And it's amazing coffee, amazing. And he donates profits. This company donates the profits to Second Amendment groups and says, hey, look, you can pick your group even. So I happen to go to this website. It's called defendercoffee.com. And its founder, his name's Derek, right? And Derek's the CEO of the company, and they've grown dramatically. And the coffee, so I reached out to him. And I said, look, I really want you to, I really want to connect with you. I really want to be able to understand what you're doing. And what was interesting about this is that he was really open to have the conversation with me. Busy, but open. And we sat and talked for a minute. And I go, can you do me a favor? Can you give me a discount? He's like, it was kind of a weird silence, like I'm giving profits away. And then I said, no, I want you to give a discount to every person that comes and buys your coffee from you. So I need a discount code so that as people listen to our podcast, we have thousands of people that listen to the podcast. As they listen to the podcast, they can go to Defender Coffee and they can get a discount. And he goes, well, whatever discount we give, diminishes the profitability. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, as an organization, we'll support you and we'll continue to buy your coffee, but I want people to see you. So I want to give them a reason to go to your site.
Yeah.
Again, he's not paying us, right? And so we got him to give us a discount of 10% off anything that you get, and that 10% can carry through on a one-time basis. If you get, he has subscriptions, so he can send you coffee every month. And it's really interesting coffee. So he has like Liberty Roast and Patriot Roast. He's got one that's called 1776. That's probably my favorite. Dark roast, and he's just got all sorts of great things, and they're venturing out and doing he got me pretty excited about some of the other things he's doing, some of the other partnerships he's creating. But anyway, he's going to give us 10% off. He's going to give everyone in our community at Conservative Daily a 10% off discount. So the code for that is going to be Liberty. Liberty. It should be really easy. You need to Google how to spell it. Please Google how to spell it. Most of you should know what Liberty
everyone
is.
Listening should know how to spell
It's
Liberty.
with a Y, not an E. So Liberty.
Yeah.
Right. So, but using the code Liberty, you can get 10% off your order
for Defender Coffee.
For Defender Coffee, and that's defendercoffee.com. And really, the interesting part about this is that I just want people to understand that there are organizations, there are people out there that are selfishly trying to fight for the rights of Americans. They're trying to fight for people who want to support the Constitution.
Yeah.
And so we have to be giving back to those people so that they can give back to what we do, because it's stuff we're going to buy anyway. And again, this is not some multi-level marketing. It's something we discovered. And to see the impact that and the passion that Derek has for the Second Amendment is it's commendable, because he's an average everyday American just fighting for our rights.
Yeah.
And so, I wanted to plug them. It was kind of a selfless plug.
That's fine. I just hope next time that we can do it as a sponsorship.
Yeah. Hey, it might get to that point, but actually that didn't even cross my mind. Yeah. And, he does now listen to us, because when we were talking, he said, yeah, I'm going to definitely listen to you. And I got his cell number, and he texted me back and said, hey, you're doing some great things, and I really appreciate what you're doing. And so like-minded Americans that really just want to stand up for other Americans, that's what America's all about.
Yeah,
and I think
it's about putting your money where your mouth is, right? We look
Right,
at all the companies that kowtow to China, right? That are, I mean, Dolce and Gabbana removing Taiwan from their list of countries where they have stores, right? Just disgusting things where companies are kowtowing to China, or they're just towing the leftist party line. No one wants to put their money with those companies. So it's great to have an option to be able to go to a company that you know shares your values and you know is going to be fighting alongside you. But I always caution about that, because it does give people a sense of slacktivism. Definitely go to defendercoffee.com, use promo code Liberty. We're not getting sponsored by them.
No.
We don't get any cut of it. It's just a
Nope.
cool little
and you get
discount
10% off. Right.
But do not think that you have fulfilled your obligation as a sovereign citizen by buying the coffee, right? we have to do more, because what we've been talking about all hour is our rights being eroded, our rights being taken away. And I mean, I've mentioned it a bunch of times. They're releasing the felons, not the felons and misdemeanors. They're releasing the criminals from jail. And then if you go out and protest, they're putting you in the same jails that they claim are too dangerous because of COVID-19. It's mind blowing, but we gotta keep fighting back. And part of it is, yes, documenting this. I'm going to be on OAN tonight talking about this North Carolina case and what's going on in Michigan. So I'll be on OAN on Tipping Point tonight talking about that. So part of it is documenting it, but also it's about a call to action, because we're finally seeing people getting out of their homes and protesting in Michigan and North Carolina. That has to continue. That has to continue in a safe manner, right? Do it safely. But our God-given rights, yes, they're natural rights, but in our government, with our government officials so eager to trample on them whenever they think they can, your rights are use them or lose them. If you do not use your right to peaceably assemble, you will not have that right. If you do not go out and support your gun stores and defy these orders, forcing them closed, you will not have a right to keep and bear arms. So it's about using your rights before we lose them.
But we're losing them systematically. It's almost as if it's not a slow erosion. We've fallen off the cliff, and we have no parachute. And by not having a parachute, right, we're going to hit the ground. We're going to hit it hard.
Yeah,
we're not going to survive it. And they're going to tell us that we died of COVID-19 when we really died of constitutional suppression.
Yeah,
that's what we died of. The founding fathers, all of the things that we worked so hard for. You want to know why Americans are pissed off right now? You want to know why business owners are pissed off? Because they see this thing going back, this jockeying happening in politics, all the plantation owners fighting at different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they burn.
Yeah.
And they're pissed off about it. They're pissed off because they can't get truth, they can't get relief, they have no control over their environment, but they're saying, hey, if you care more about the dollar than you do about others' health, right?
Yeah.
You're selfish. People have worked their entire lives. The people that are business owners, the sole proprietors that have been out there breaking their backs to service other Americans or sell to other Americans, they're the same as the people on the battlefields, right? They're on the battlefields in World War I and World War II, and they're on the battlefield. Being on the battlefield doesn't mean that you're in danger of dying per se, right? Being on the battlefield means that you're willing to sacrifice in order for service.
Yeah.
And we are facing a government today that all they want to do is instill fear so they can have control.
Yeah.
Because they are the plantation owners. And we say this over and over and over again. And Max, we've talked about me putting my face up on this podcast and being a little bit more open. And I haven't up till this point. I probably will. We have the video in the studio so that people can see who I am. But the scrutiny that comes from it, I get it already.
Yeah.
I've been audited 4 times in the last 10 years, 4 times, more than anyone else. And by the way, I keep impeccable records. Why do I get audited? Because I don't know where the head of the snake is, right? They can just say, hey, look, let's go after that guy. Let's go after Joe Otto. Let's go after him. Right. And you'd say, well, they know who you are anyway. They do. Right. And they practice it. But the amount of scrutiny that the average American gets for standing up is, I mean, look at how soldiers are treated.
Yeah, it's
right. Look at how our veterans are treated. Out of one side of their mouth, they say, "Yeah, we got to support veterans." Out of the other side of the mouth, they're like, "Oh, war is terrible, and I can't believe you're becoming a weapon of war."
Yeah,
and we let those people talk.
Yeah,
we let them talk while we disgrace Americans. We disgrace the people that serve their country. And by the way, small to medium business owners, right? Business owners, they serve their country. Now, they don't serve the country on the battlefield, right? But they're there. They're the backbones behind our community. And right now, they're the sharecroppers that are being enslaved the most. They're being enslaved. And the American people need to start standing up for them. That woman got arrested in North Carolina because 500, 1,000 people didn't come to her aid. And you could say whatever you want about Black Lives Matter or some of the other organizations, but they have cohesion.
Yeah.
They stand up for each other. They have courage. And by the way, I don't like some of the things that they say, right? But I find it hard to disagree with the fact that they want change. They want their lives to matter. And you can say, "Oh, it's a bogus organization." Maybe it is, because power corrupts. But there's a part of their narrative that's true. And there's a part of a narrative in the American people that's true. It is true that the average American does not have fundamental rights available to them because it's too expensive to keep them. And because we're so divided, we don't get an opportunity, Max. There's no opportunity for us to 100% say they cannot violate my rights. And they could say, "Well, I'll violate them." And then you come back and you fight for them. And by the way, every dollar that you spend is out of your own pocket. And even if we lose, there's no consequence and we cannot be held accountable. The end. Yeah. That's where we are today in America.
Yeah.
That's America.
It is. Well, we're up against the hard break. I'll take that as your final thoughts, but usually you close with talking about having courage.
Courage.
My final thought would be to not only have courage, but to try and live the life that the founding fathers, our previous generations, that they would be proud of. Be the American that the previous generations, the founders, would be proud of. If you look at what you're doing and you agree that the founding fathers would be ashamed of what's going on, don't fall into that rut. Just do better. Have courage, push back. And if that means getting out of the house and protesting, then get out of the house and protest. Well, that's going to be it for this edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. Remember, you can download the podcast on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can find us on the Podbean app and conservative-daily.com/podcast. Please make sure that you subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. It helps us as we plan future podcasts. So again, my name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto.
And remember that the fight to take back our country is not over, but the only way we can win is if we all fight together.